how the conditions have changed. A minute or two ago, it looked like the sun was breaking through and it was getting a little bit warmer. Now it is windier than it has been, it's raining again, and the hardy spectators and teams are getting ready for the remainder of the afternoon of racing here at Silverstone. We've got more from the Classic Touring Car Racing Club. Cars built before 1993 are on track in a few minutes. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Silverstone, our first Motors TV live race day of 2015. We have one at Castle Combe on May the 4th, and we're at Donington in July. This concept, championed by Magnus Ladd a few years ago, brings us to Silverstone this weekend, and it's also not only another year of Motors TV live race days, but it's the 50th anniversary of Clubman's racing, and the Clubman's Register is going to be out on track shortly. You're looking at Chris Hart, the chairman these days of the Clubman's Register, aboard the Catchpole Malloch. Catchpole, the cartoon created by Barry Foley, the late great Barry Foley, wonderful cartoonist, and Barry himself didn't just create Catchpole that ran for Autosport for many years, but was also a very good Clubman's racer himself. And if you have a look towards the back of that car, you will find on each flank there is a Catchpole cartoon. And the idea is that after each round of the championship there'll be another cartoon, and by the end of the season it'll be like a mobile book. There you can see Catchpole with his old mate Mad Dog, which, as I say, was part of the cartoon strip that ran in Autosport for many years. Barry Foley, who passed away a few years ago, was a great enthusiast, and even in his last years with ill health came back into Clubman's racing. And this is one of the Catchpole stories. It rather dates it with reference to Lauder and Hunt, but it remains one to bring a smile to the face. And Chris Hart, who has been racing, not, I don't think, for all 50 of the Clubman's registered years, but not far off. He's a huge enthusiast. He and his wife Karen have done so much for the Clubman's Register. He'll be out on track very shortly. You're looking there at one of the more recent builds, because Clubman's cars are looking forward as well. The Proto class with the more aerodynamic bodywork, Alex Champkin's car, is there with the Vision V84 underneath what has become a rather more swoopy body shell. And the Vision was a car that in the 1980s was very successful. In the 1980s you went back to Ford 1600 and Ford 1700cc engines, and now, although there are Ford 1700s and 1600s in the classic Clubman's element, it's the Rover K series engine that powers the majority of the entry. Chris Lake there, the welder and fabricator, with his Phil Weaver car, one that you will not miss with its stripy livery, and the drivers ready to go. There's another race before they are on track, but they're ready in the garages. They'll then head to the assembly area and out on track. Clubman's has always been a category that allows the engineer to thrive as well. Perhaps it doesn't happen quite so much now as it used to, because there are lots of cars in existence and people buy one and then go racing. But in the original days, lots of people would build their own chassis. The Malloch became synonymous with Clubman's racing, the Malloch U2. These days, they're all rather known by their type numbers, Mark, whatever it might be. There's the Mark 18 of Chris Hart, but initially they were known as Malloch U2s, so called because when he built the car, Major Arthur Malloch wanted to build a car that U2 could afford to buy and go racing. There you can see Maurice Hart, Chris's son, the Altrincham wine bar proprietor. That's another car with the more modern swoopy bodywork. The Clubman's Register around about 1999-2000 had a bad spell. There was one faction that felt that it ought to be modernised and make the cars rear-engined, and the other faction said no, Clubman's is about front-engine cars, and that is what they have remained. And so for a time there was National Supersports, which was run by the Clubman's Register but for rear-engined cars, and it just didn't really work. The numbers never grew, it became expensive, and after a few seasons that was aborted, and Clubman's decided to go back to what it did best, which was low-cost, front-engined racing. Moves were put in foot with the K-Series engine to safeguard the future, and it has been very strong as well. David Childs also looked after the classic Clubman. Some of those cars have gone off to race with the HSCC. There's still a good number of them here this weekend. And on the entry, Phil Barrock, 80 years of age and still enjoying his racing, and he's out with his Mallet Mark 20B, a car that dates back to 1978. Clubman's racing, long may it continue, and you'll have an example to see that in a little while. The next race is going to be, however, for the Autoglim Racing Pre-83 touring cars and the SVG Motorsport Pre-93 touring car championship. They were racing yesterday. Ray West was the winner, having been shadowed race long by Roger Stanford. Both of them hugely experienced drivers, but Ray West was able to hang on in there and take victory in his BMW M3. Similar car of Roger Stanford, was the runner-up. Smaller engine though, 2.5 litre in Roger's car. The man from Hull, Ray West, who comes from Cheltenham with a 3 litre M3. Silverstone, still, I'm afraid, is a wet and cold place. The marshal's busy at the moment attending to an incident at the end of a previous race. There's the top of the BRDC clubhouse that overlooks the stadium, in other words, Brooklands, Luffield and Woodcote. That's the view from the back of it, down into the paddock, the race control building. And on track very shortly will be the touring cars, and in the paddock as well, the teams braving the elements. But it's a challenging lap in these conditions, that is for sure. Now, I've already talked about Phil Weaver's Mallock, where we saw Chris Lake behind the wheel of it through King Henry Taverns. Phil Weaver backs the Clubman's Championship, and Phil is down in the pit lane with Andy J.
Thank you, David. Yes, I think we've had a comprehensive history of the Clubmans, thanks to David's encyclopedic knowledge there. But Phil, quick question for you, very simply. What are these gorgeous cars like to drive?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. I mean, what you've got to remember about Clubman's race, it's been going 50 years. Some of these cars are actually quite old, but they're still competitive. And if you're a young hot shoe, don't think you can walk into this formula and win, because you won't. Because in this formula, even though some of them are, let's just say, not in the prime of their life, some are past that, but they're quick, really quick people. And you'll see that today. You'll see some fantastic racing.
What keeps them so sharp?
I don't know really. It's alcohol with me, but I do own a pub company, so that helps.
I hope that's not the case with the drivers.
No, I'm sure no one has a drink until after the race.
And there seems to be a really lovely spirit amongst the lads. I mean, obviously everyone's waiting to get out on the track now, but there does seem to be one of those things that we see in certain races, which is a camaraderie.
Yeah, that's right, there is. I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years. The register's been going for nearly 50 years, well, 50 years this year. And a lot of the people are still racing in it that were racing when I started over 30 years ago.
So are we going to see you in the driving seat again?
Yes, so this is just, I'm rather busy at the moment in some other areas, but I do intend to come back at some point in the not too distant future.
What's this like for you? You're kind of a spectator today. Would you rather be behind the wheel?
It's like going to a pub and not having a drink.
Really? Even in these conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the sun's coming out now. Cheer up.
There is a tiny gap of sunlight, yeah, so we could see some delightful racing.
I think with a drying track and the skill of these drivers, and I know these drivers well, and there are some really skilled drivers here, you're going to see some great racing today.
Brilliant. You've quite literally whet our appetite. Thanks, Phil. David, it's back to you.
Andy, thanks very much. The Clubman's Championship, as I say, in its 50th anniversary year, we will get to with cars from Sport 1600s, the Proto class, and then the classic Clubmans with the 1700 and 1600cc engines, the Crossflow and the Kent engines. That's Copse Corner, first corner of the lap. It's still wet, it's still slippery, and everybody here is still cold and sheltering as best they can as the cars there in the garages. Brian Hunter, ready to go with his Mallet Mark 16. One of the cars, again, from the classic Clubman's division. And frustration for drivers in a sense, because they have to wait and wait and wait. But they're ready. That's the good news from the race organisers' point of view. As soon as they can get cars running, they will do.
They literally are sat on, the engine is driving them round. Literally, let's just look over the engine that is powering me around the track.
One of the quirky parts about, I mentioned a few minutes ago, the split when you have the front and the rear engined debate in Clubman's racing. At the same time as it was the BRDC at the time, the race office saying we ought to modernise this category and go rear-engined. The counter-argument was that the most popular car at Le Mans of that few years had been the Paynos, which was front-engine.
Yes, yeah.
And it got so much attention because it was front-engine and it was quirky as a racing car, and the Clubman's Register held that up as an example. And in a sense, they were right, because we have gone back to front-engine. It never went away, but it's become, again, the only Clubman's category. And the grids, thanks to a lot of work by the Clubman's Register, are looking strong once more. Rodney Players, Mark 23 there in the garage, lined up ready to go. You'll also find I think it's in a different garage in fairness, but Howard Payne, last year's champion, his car run by all students from the Huntingdonshire Regional College, and they're all here, and they guided him to the championship last year. The Lamborghini.
Lovely.
You also need a sense of humour to race club.
Yeah, yeah, because
it does help.
You get blooming cold and wet, but at the same time, they are blooming quick cars. You know, they really are quick.
I mean, performance per pound, there's not really much to argue with them.
No, exactly. Well, they always come across to me as like sort of not so expensive Formula 3 cars, because they've got downforce, you need to be fit to drive them, your arms, your upper body strength needs to be strong, and we're going to see a lot of spray rising like a fishtail, rising from those, you know, as we see this wet circuit get in theory dried out by them, because the wind will just be forcing the water off, because they are very aerodynamic.
It was out of Clubman's racing that came Will Hoy on his way to winning the British Touring Car Championship and having sports car success. Max Mosley was to great things.
Yes,
so, as you look down into the garages, let's pick out one or two more of them. There is Brian Jordan, the retired airline pilot, and in the background as well, Steve Everson with the Proto class car, the P on the side of it, and the word Proto to signify what class it runs in.
That looks nice, doesn't it?
It does. You can see how the more modern shape is.
Got the different bits of tape as well that you can see along the front there, that they've tried to get as much heat into the engine, or keep into the engine as possible, because of the cool weather conditions. Engines don't like, they love cool air, but at the same time, if they're not running up to temperature, they're not being as efficient as they should be. So lots of tape along the front of some of the cars, along the radiator area, you'll notice.
Fair play as well to the Clubman's register, because one of the things it has done is acknowledge the fact that the cars are old, but they have really concentrated on car presentation and preparation. Graham Smith there, somebody new to Clubman's racing, having mopped up in Caterham Graduate Championships, former bobsleigh champion as well. If you've seen our Motors TV live race days in the past, you might remember him in the Caterham Graduate Series, of which he's been a prime mover. He's moved to Clubman's racing this year, and the man from Macclesfield will certainly be one to watch, because he's a very quick driver. But all the cars, despite their age, looking smarter and smarter and smarter. K-Sport 1600 is the class where you find the majority of cars. The 1600, rather unfairly, people think refers to the combined age of the drivers. It's not the combined age, it's the average.
Yeah, and even though he had a proper set of glasses on there as well, I hope he knows he's going to put his helmet on, because he needs to protect himself. He hasn't got a little windscreen like he had on in the Caterhams as well. So very aerodynamic, very physical cars to drive, and I'm really looking forward to that race, because the pace of the cars that we've seen already today is going to be so much quicker. You know, these really are quick machines. There you go, you can see the bits of the tape there on the bodywork, as well as on some of the areas along the front as well. Yeah,
catch poles there. Now Peter Burnham there, number 75, is in his Mallock Mark 21, and there he is.
There he is,
and
doesn't know whether to wave or not.
He should have been in a Mark 27.
Right.
But yesterday, because he let somebody else race his car, the Mark 27 was damaged. And so what Peter did overnight was go home and get his son's car, and here he is back on the grid.
I love it.
He will go racing, and that is proper Clubman's register spirit. You don't give up, and everybody mucks in and helps. Now that, being polished, you can see is Howard Payne's car, last year's champion, and the Huntingdonshire Regional College students. They can tell the camera's on because they have never had as much polish on a racing car in their lives. Lewis Beals, who is one of the lecturers at the college, also a freelance journalist, writes for Autosport. Lewis is overseeing that project, has done for a number of years, and with success. But they had dramas with the car and have had to replumb the whole fuel system and try and get it back onto the pace. Howard Payne will remain one to watch when we get to that race.
Yes, and it looks like it's had a complete respray, and it looks in absolutely immaculate condition as well, and all the team there lined up perfectly for our cameras as well.
Another look down into the garages. Andy Langridge, their former Porsche racer, in preparation to get into the car. His son, also Adrian, is in the race. And there is Adrian's car, the Mark 27, that lines up alongside. I mentioned a moment ago Peter Burnham having had to dash back and get a spare car for the day, but I think he's good to go when we get to the Clubman's race, and they're going to have their work cut out with the slippery circuit, and we'll see how Peter gets on. I suspect he's going to have to start near the back of the grid anyway.
Bit of a break in the clouds there as well, David, as well. I'm always the optimist. It's still very windy, it's still very greasy and slippery, but it doesn't quite look as menacing on some angles of the circuit as it is in most of it.
Let's go back to Andy down in the pit lane, and I think he's caught up now with Peter Burnham, of whom we spoke a little while ago.
Thank you, David. Yes, you're right. Peter, hello there. Thanks for joining us. Are you looking forward to getting behind the wheel?
I am looking forward to getting behind the wheel, because so far this weekend I haven't driven the car because of problems yesterday with the car we were driving. My colleague was driving. That's no longer available to me because it got damaged yesterday. We rushed around and we brought this car up, which is my son Chris's car, which I'm going to drive this afternoon. So yes, I'm very keen to get out there and give it a go, see how we can get on. We've got to start from the back of the grid because we haven't qualified. So we're going to have an interesting race, I think.
Did your son have any conditions attached to you borrowing the car?
No, I'm his main sponsor as usual, bank of mum and dad. Help him out when he needs to be, but he races it quite often. He's quite good with it. But he offered it to me yesterday when he found out that my car was not running.
Tell me about what it's like starting at the back of the grid, particularly when it's not your fault. Does it make it more exciting for you because you've got to get through everyone?
It's quite hard work because, especially going into the first corner, conditions like today, it's sort of got to hold position really, see what happens at the first corner, and then we start working our way through the field, see how far we can get up.
Go on, give me some predictions. Given that you're at the back, where do you think you're going to finish?
Probably not very high. I reckon we should probably make up 5 or 6 places, hopefully. If we do that, I'll be pleased. If we get any more, that's a bonus.
So 5 or 6 places is what we're looking for. But of course, this year we see it's the 50th anniversary of the beginning of Clubman's. What makes it such a special series?
It's a very, very friendly formula. They're wonderful cars. They're very fast for their cost, relatively cheap to run, and the people are just magic in it. They're really, really good, friendly, and we have a lot of fun. Even with all today's dramas we've had with all the delays, there's great fun going on around here in the background.
I mean, if I could say this delicately, some of these cars, they're not exactly brand new, but they're still very competitive, aren't they? Very
competitive. Some of the quick ones will put some of the modern single-seaters to shame in terms of their lap times. It's very difficult to appreciate how fast these cars go, but when you think even the Sport 1600 cars, which have only got about 130 brake, can lap here in a minute in the dry. That's quite incredible.
So what would you compare them to in terms of other series? Are they a bit like a Formula Ford?
They are very similar to a Formula Ford, but a little bit quicker. We've obviously got aerodynamics, got full front and rear aerodynamic package, so we can get more downforce. We run wider slicks. So yeah, through the corners we just so fast. It's just amazing. I love driving. I love driving them.
I was going to say, I get the feeling you absolutely really enjoy it. But what about here at Silverstone? I mean, it's notoriously windy, but particularly this weekend, it really goes for it. How will that affect you?
Today, the wind is down the pit straight into Copse, which means we're going to be arriving there sort of 5 or maybe 8 miles an hour quicker than normal, with less downforce because the wind's behind us. So that's going to be tricky, but interesting at the same time. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
If I could offer you a race in any other series, would you swap it or would you be staying in Clubman's?
No, I'd stay in Clubman's. The whole package. The cars are magic to drive, the people are great, and it's just a wonderful series. And it's been going 50 years, as you said.
Terrific. Thank you so much for talking to us. We wish you best of luck when you can get out on the track.
Thanks very much. Bye.
And it is true, people come into Clubman's racing and largely they tend to stay there because it is good, quick, low-cost racing, and it's also a great set of people, great camaraderie on and off track. One of the drivers, for example, you'll see a little bit later on, Peter Richings, did have a spell, I think, getting up to the Formula 3 Class B Championship years ago, but is a mainstay of Clubman's racing. Barry Webb, his old mate, likewise. Chris Hart, I've talked about. And year after year, they come back and continue to enjoy their racing. Right, these are the cars for the next Classic Touring Car Racing Club extravaganza, making their way round onto the grid, headed by Ray West in his BMW M3. I think you might have caught a glimpse in the background of a XXX liveried Ford Capri, which is the car owned by Stuart Kye. There it is. It's decked in the livery that Jerry Marshall carried in the British Saloon, now British Touring Car Championship of 1978. It was in action at Goodwood last week. Stuart and Graham Skid Scarborough, Jerry's old mate, driving it. Alfa Romeo Alfa Suds, look, Sud Sprints as well on the grid. Starting to warm to this already. And Publican Peter Holton, former National Super Rod racer, with his Rover P6. The Classic Touring Car Racing Club gives you nothing if not a varied grid. I know I said it earlier on in the day, but how often do you see a grid with this great variety. Eclectic, I think, could be a word that we've not trotted out yet, but it's due on course now to describe this grid. There they all are.
What Renault 5s as well.
Yeah, the good old turbo. Right, your quiz question: who won the very first Renault 5 turbo race when it became a one-make championship? 1985 Thruxton.
Mark Fish, I'm going to say.
Jonathan Palmer.
Oh, Jonathan Palmer.
Jonathan Palmer in the guest car. Yes.
Oh. Wow.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you very much. I wasn't far out though, was I? Mark Fish, he won it quite a few times, didn't he?
He certainly ran most of the cars that won races, if nothing else, you're right. Ray West has been a mainstay of this type of racing for a long, long time. Former Modified Production Saloon Car champion. And his yellow M3 takes on the red and white one of Roger Stanford at the front of the grid, which is now starting to form up. See how windy it is. And I think although Will Bowles extracted from his Mazda, there's going to be a little bit of work done just to the barriers. You can see a tyre stack, I think, just being positioned there as well, so it was quite a whack that he gave it. So there, Roger Stanford at the wheel of his M3. Roger is somebody else with quite a nice collection of cars, and he drives them very quickly as well.
Just seeing the onboard there, just the camera just poking through there into that BMW, just reminds me of the sort of the Sittner and the Mike Smith days with the open face lids.
That's right, absolutely.
It's just brilliant, just a great reminder of my childhood, watching all the motorsport races that I have over the years, and the Rob Gravett coloured track sport yellow and red Sierra as well. Malcolm Wise there, positioning on the outside row of row 2. What memories, there's so many people that are watching this, and even ourselves as well, going, yeah, I remember that race, I remember that, it's just such a wicked mix is what you said. Eclectic, your exact word, as the word you love so much, on the grid.
Go back to the mid-70s, you've got the Mark 1 Escorts there, early to mid-70s, and of course the Mark 1 Escort had its own one-make championship, the Escort Mexico, and Alfa Romeo for Suds are there, including the Sud Sprint and the Sud TI, which again you used to see in the Napolina colours in the British Saloon Car Championship. There aren't that many, I'm afraid, Alfa Suds around these days. Build quality was not stunning in that era, but those that are around are lovingly cosseted and raced by their owners, and there you can see, looking down onto the grid, the back of the last few rows, Simon Ward will be there. Laser Tools livery as well, look, on Michael Sheraton's car, colours you see in the current BTCC. And Mark Osborne's Dolomite Sprint, I think, should be behind him. But yeah, Stuart Kye's Triple X Capri, I think, has got onto the grid. It wasn't, for some reason, shown on the original grid sheet, but it is there today.
Fina colours as well.
That's right, yeah. Pete Winston, word about Pete, former European hot rod champion, world super rod champion, 66 years of age, but somebody that began in oval racing and has been in and out of circuit racing and back to the ovals for a long, long time. But Pete Winston is one to watch, and in these conditions, perhaps the nimbled smaller engine cars could be well worth watching.
Yeah, especially in these conditions, you're going to have, stronger rear-wheel drive cars, more power, but then you've got the more nimble, lighter cars with less power that are going to get more traction and be a little bit more nimble through the twiddly stuff. But Silverstone is renowned for it. It's a power circuit, reasonably technical as well, so there is a bit of a balance. So yeah, I think we're in for a bit of a treat with this one, definitely.
There's Ray West with the weight of the car advertised on the side, the engine tuner. And another one to watch in this is going to be Stephen Privet on the second row. That's what I'm afraid. The sorry sight of Wells' car being taken away. It was a big whack after the checkered flag as well. So he took the flag and it just got away from him and off he went. And as you made the point, wet grass, he became a passenger. So again, the officials that have had a very trying weekend at Silverstone have been hard at work to sort out the incident, repair the barrier, put the tyre stack back in place. And now we should be good to go. David Howard's Jaguar, a glimpse of at the back of the grid. That'll be one to watch. He didn't do yesterday's race, I don't believe, but he's there. And so he's going to be one to watch as Roger Stanford is ready for business.
Still very, very windy. Marshals have finished all of their work on the right-hand side. It's all neat and tidy. Tractor, JCB just getting out of the way. Marshall not getting blown around as much.
No, I told you the weather was improving. You didn't believe me.
Well, I'm forever the negative person, obviously.
Compared to what we've had, that's just a flutter of that flag, isn't it?
That BRDC flag hanging on in there. Hang on in there.
So the grid is formed. And the last car on it, the Honda CRX of Andrew Anderson-Smith, Ray West, who for many, many years was a force to be reckoned with in things like Opel Asconas and then an Opel Manta, now with this BMW M3. All set, ready to go. We'll have a warming up lap for these cars. 15 minutes is the race duration. And of course they've been waiting and waiting and waiting, so they just want to get on with this.
Yeah, 30 seconds. That's a good sign to see, is when you see the marshals giving you a signal now, rather than you waiting there in sort of no man's land, not knowing what's going on, being actually told by the marshals now. We're going to see the green flag being waved ever so shortly, if he can dry the flag out and unravel it from its wooden stick, as it were. And as they set off, they sort of slither away, trying to see how slippery and how greasy the circuit is. And lots of spray. You can see the wind there really pushing all of the water and the spray across into the pit lane, as it were. That is where the wind is coming from, if you look at the brick car flag signals in the background.
So the cars are released. More gratuitous shots of Alfa Romeo's look going through Cops Corner. The Jaguar XJS as well, which not in the UK but in the European Touring Car Championship had great success, 82, 83, 84, thanks to Tom Walkinshaw, and then won Bathurst in 1985. The Honda CRX, if you go back to 1988, had its own one-make championship. The likes again of Patrick Watts and Paul Taft and Dave Loudon amongst the star drivers. Graham Churchill as well, who was a front runner in later days. Yes, that's right. So the cars turning their way through Beckett's. The yellow Vauxhall there, Alan Greenhorn, another former British Touring Car Championship racer, turning his way out of Beckett's. And I think almost every car brings back memories of either people that drove them or championships competed in. The XJS powering its way out of Beckett's.
It just looks so long, doesn't it?
It does,
It just looks so long. Filled our screen there in comparison to the little CRX at the back.
And the Jaguar XJ12 of David Howard, that's another car, as I say, to watch making progress. It runs, it's not a genuine broad-speed car from the mid-70s, but it runs in the broad-speed BL colours. Derek Bell, Andy Rouse drove them, not with success, because they were rather recalcitrant beasts in the European Touring Car Championship, but it harks back to that. There's Alan Greenhorn in the yellow Vauxhall. Alan was, if you go back to 1983, for example, a class winner in the then British Saloon Car Championship with a Volkswagen Golf, but has raced in saloons for many years before that and a few years since, and then built this car a few years back, came back into racing, and it's good to have him on the grid once more. The Fina liveried BMW again, which sort of recreates European liveries. Behind on the grid you've got Malcolm Wise with the Sierra Cosworth, and that's not really Aidan Moffat in the Laser Tools colours, but it is Michael Sheraton carrying that livery.
That'd be in the Gravit colours, wasn't it? The red and the Trackstar. Before the Trackstar with the red and yellow colours?
Red and white.
Sierra?
Yeah, red and white in 89 when Cartel backed them, and then it was all white in 1990, so it's a corruption of that livery, but I think it's based on that.
Yeah.
So the grid is formed, the memories flow.
Yes, they do.
We'll be ready to go. It's just,
we're getting carried away.
We do, and we're set to go racing in just a moment. The Auto Glim Racing Pre-83 Touring Car Championship, the SVG Motorsport Pre-93 Touring Car Championship on track here at Silverstone, part of this Motors TV live race day. 15 minutes are in prospect. It's going to be a battle royal, I predict, between Ray West and Roger Stanford, but expect battles all the way down the field as well. Rear-wheel drive cars off the grid are going to be fairly lively, to say the least. The road is drier than it has been. The only positive about this blustery wind is it gets rid of the water and dries the track fairly quickly, but it's still very cold. There's not much track temperature, not much warmth in tyres, even after that one warming up lap, and it's a long way for the back of the grid to arrive. Andrew Anderson-Smith's Honda CRX has now done so. Lights go red, lights out now. Who gets the best start? It's a good getaway by both from the front row. Stephen Primer doesn't get away so well from the second row in the white Escort, and it is Ray West who storms into the lead as they go down towards Copse for the first time. Stuart Kay tries to go around the outside in the Triple X liveried Ford Capri. There's still a lot of standing water on the road. The spray hangs in the air as the cars work their way now up towards Beckett's then. And so as the field turns its way into the right-hander, Ray West leads. Roger Stanford is second. Then the best of the Fords is third of Malcolm Wise. And very, very wide goes West. Very sideways goes Wise. And Stuart Kay's Capri goes off as well.
And a big slide from the leader there is West. West started all of that really in the lead, and the yellow BMW went really sideways, corrected it, and then everyone seemed to follow suit in sympathy really. So not a great start, and again Beckett's has taken a few prisoners on the first start.
And here we go, Michael Sheraton's BMW dives up the inside there of the Pete Winston escort coming down towards Brooklands. You've got Nick Strong in the white and green Ford Capri trying to join in as well. The recovering Stephen Primmett's there also in the white Mark 1 escort as they come up now towards Luffield. This is lap number 1. Up front, the yellow M3 of Ray West leading. He and Roger Stanford getting away. Michael Sheraton is going great guns, isn't he, in the third place M3, but he's got these pesky Mark 1 escorts that are much older cars rather impudently staying with him, and the Mark 1 Capri of Nick Strong as well. So they come over the line as Roger Stanford gets out of the spray, has a look up the inside going into Copse Corner, but Ray West knows exactly how to preserve a race lead. He's got pointy elbows when he needs them, he sticks them out, and Roger Stanford can't find a way through.
And he's making that BMW very, very wide as well. Just watching on the exit of Copse there, the yellow BMW of West, the back end of the car stepping out, and this is where he stepped out earlier on the first lap, which then concertinaed everybody back, and they all did it out of sympathy earlier, but no problems there. Very, very clean start. We've got a massive sideways there. Is he going to collect a cone? Yes, he is. Pings it onto the Grand Prix circuit and spins. Is he going to get collected? Let's hope not. There's plenty of room either side. Let's hope not. Let's get him going again. Select the gear, start the car up, and off we go again.
This is Stephen Primmett, who's had the spin, and everybody has managed to dodge round him. David Howard in the background making progress in the XJ12. The XJS also has been storming up the order. The car of Andrew Harrison as the leaders work their way back into the stadium. It's all go, isn't it?
that was a big slide and a very, very quick back end coming round, a quick spin and then blocking the circuit, but everybody missed him and he got going again.
Now this is the lead battle, and it's going to be 3 for the lead, I think, before long, because you've got Michael Sheraton charging after them in the Laser Tools livery, which of course is going to be adorning a Mercedes this year at the BTCC. Stanford goes to the inside at Copse. Is he going to be able to make a move? He thinks about it, but again, going offline to pass, difficult because you find even more wet.
Yep, you do find even more wet, and also if you're going offline to pass, you're taking a tighter line, so you're sacrificing the exit speed as well. So he's literally showing his nose up the inside just to get out of the spray, really, and just to show that he is threatening to do a pass at some point, but I think he's just biding his time.
Now there you've got Alan Greenhall in the yellow Vauxhall, right onto the tail now of John Wright in the Mark 1 Escort, and then behind them also is Malcolm Jeffs, the 67-year-old with the Alfa Sud Sprint, and that is going very well indeed. Takes you back to the likes of John Dooley and the late John Milesco that used to race them in the BSCC, and Malcolm Jeffs now closing up onto the tail of the Vauxhall. And Alan Greenhall is rather busy trying to attack and defend all at the same time. David Howard in the Jaguar now tries to join the next little gaggle and spring up the inside as they come out of the corner, trying to get alongside Paul Beaurain as the race leaders almost overlap coming through Luffield. Ray West is on the outside, but he gets it sideways, and even more sideways behind is the charging Michael Sheraton.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a three-way battle, David. I think you are bang on the money there. That's absolutely brilliant stuff. But yeah, the BMW, the lead car of West along at the front there, is going very, very sideways just when he doesn't want to need to, and he goes sideways on the way into Copse Corner. So he's literally coming off the brakes, turning in, and the back end is reacting to that as he turns and the back comes round. Not where you want to go sideways, before the corner. On the exit it's fine, but not before. That is brave stuff at about 85 miles an hour into Copse.
Lapping at a similar pace is Michael Sheraton in third as Roger Stanford, the man from Hull, closes up to the back of Ray West, under braking for Beckett. Sheraton almost with them as well, and these three long gone, aren't they, before now Nick Strong is up into fourth place in the older Capri. And look at the way the Jaguar XJS has gone. Andrew Harrison then is fifth, having started 22nd, but he may not be fifth for much longer, because if he doesn't get sideways, he might get clobbered by Pete Winston, who just about gets the Mark 1 Escort slowed down. But all of a sudden, it's starting to get wet once again, it seems, over at Beckett's, because wipers are on, the rain is coming down, and that brief bit of optimism has now long gone. So what was going to be a fairly lively race anyway could be even more lively if the weather conditions get nasty, and that's nasty.
Yeah, and Sheraton as well really is catching these two that are battling. They're actually tripping over themselves now. Also the vision from even the leader, because it's raining, isn't going to be as good as it could be by being in the lead without being in the spray behind somebody else. And Sheraton again is done the fastest lap, so Sheraton really is on a roll here, and he's looking like he's going to take second place quite easily. He's looking like he's revelling in these weather conditions.
So Sheraton is there, as you say, third, getting stronger and stronger. All of these three drivers leading their respective classes, and Sheraton now looks like the danger, doesn't he? Because he's right up onto the back of Roger Stanford, and it won't be long before he's going to make a move here. to the outside line where he hopes there's a bit of traction. And Stanford slithers out wide, leaves the door open.
This is going to be a drag race.
It is, and it's going to be resolved, I think, down at Brooklyn. So Sheraton's going to be on the outside line there, but the inside line for Luffield. That's the plan.
Yeah, that is the plan. They've both got a relatively similar exit, but you've got a little bit more power there from the Stanford, the red and white Fina-coloured BMW on the inside now, but we've got more momentum from the laser car of Sheraton around the outside. It's the grippier line around the outside. Are they going to give each other room? Yes, they are. And what a great move up the inside. Can he make it stick?
He can. He's on the inside line. It's the shorter line. It's the tighter line. Having said that, the very experienced Roger Stanford is going to come back at him if he can. And they overlap coming out of the corner. Ray West can't get away from them. And Stanford does go back ahead, coming through Woodcote now. Over the timing line they come. Sheraton has done the fastest lap of the race. That time around, he's 2/10 back, and they're already up with the traffic. Look, the CRX there is about to go a lap down. Andrew Anderson-Smith is going to have to dart out of the way so that he doesn't impede the quicker cars, and fair play to him. He does exactly that, sees them coming, gets well out of the way, and there's a yellow flag waving as David Howard has dumped the Jaguar in the gravel, and that, Charlie, I reckon is a bit close to the edge of the road.
Yeah, also very brave of the marshals as well there. That is a very, very slippery, quick entry on the way into the corner, so I do hope that everybody is watching the yellow flags. So the marshals will be doing their bit there to get that car moved away from out of the gravel as we see the three leaders leaving down the Wellington Straight. Here's a replay, David.
This is how he got there. Comes out of Maggots, loses the back and just slithers off into the gravel, and he is going no further. Race leader Ray West coming up towards Luffield. This is lap 6. Having to really fight the car coming out of Luffield there, Ray West. He has got Roger Stanford on his tail, and then the 325i of Michael Sheraton that was trying to mix it with the M3s, having got up there, has now lost 3 or 4 lengths, and suddenly the lead battle has changed again because Stanford has shaken him off, so he can attack, he can concentrate on what's ahead. He doesn't have to worry about defending and going slower.
Yeah, exactly. Well, West, as these two, the second and third place BMW 3 Series, were sort of really battling away, the leader could get away, and now Sheraton seems to have turned his lights on. He seems to have got a little bit slower since he's turned his lights on, so he needs to probably turn them back off and go back into stealth mode, but again, it's not the safest way around, as we've got 3 abreast coming into Brooklands there. 3 abreast coming into Brooklands. Sierra versus Ford behind. All Fords battling away, as we've got an Alfa Romeo in the mixer as well, David. You'll be well happy with that.
Quite right, absolutely. You need a good Alfa, the stud sprint, very pretty little car, that, getting stuck in behind Alan Greenhall's Vauxhall. And then you've also got at the head of this John Wright's Escort in the Alan Mann colours. Then you've got the Sierra Sapphire Cosworth, Malcolm Wise, that was on the second row but has dropped back in that corruption of the Trackstar 1991 colours coming over the timing line. Alan Greenhall up alongside, in fact. He's going to have a challenge, I think, on the outside line there. The Vauxhall Forenza tries to line up to make a move, but Malcolm Wise in the Sapphire Cosworth goes to the inside of the much older Escort then as they dart into Copse Corner. But actually the Escort, perhaps more nimble and not having to worry about turbo lag, comes out ahead. And the Alfa Romeo also going oh so strongly in the hands of Malcolm Jeffs there, 15th at the start of the lap. But the yellow flags are still waving up at Beckett, so overtaking should not be happening, and it's very hard when you arrive there side by side to know who ought to give. So I think you just, as a plot, stay side by side. Ronnie Haynes in the yellow Escort, former classic racing car competitor with the HSCC, comes out ahead of Alan Greenhall. Not quite sure whether he was ahead going into the corner, but he came out ahead anyway. Yeah,
definitely. So everyone's doing their bit to try and squabble around for position, but not overtake under yellow flags at that very slippery Maggots-Beckett section of the circuit as they lead back onto the Wellington Straight, which we're picking up the leaders now, which are actually closing back up again. But we've still got West, who still is doing his bit and taking the command and still leading. And look at the power there, the difference there. He's pulling away at the top end of the straight.
But his is the 3-litre M3, it's the 2.5 engine in Roger Stanford's car, and you can tell, can't you, on that straight where the extra brunt comes in. But Roger Stanford is better on the brakes, and look, he's better through the twiddly bits because he's staying on the tail of the leader, Ray West, in the yellow M3.
Yeah, this is really good stuff. It'd be nice to see the 11 car and the 56 car, Stanford and Sheraton, really push on here. But Sheraton seems to have dropped away back in third place, and Stanford really needs to sort of give it up a little bit for the modern day M3, as it were, in front, and try and knock him off the top spot and have a nice clean move.
putting a lap on publican Peter Holton there in the Rover P6. Peter used to race a Rover Vitesse, or an SD1 shape Rover, in National Super Rods on the ovals, and a big lose. Michael Sheraton, it goes left, it goes right, it goes off in the end, and that, I'm afraid, is the end of the challenge for third place. It skates across the grass, and that grass is so wet, once you hit it, you are a passenger.
Yeah, definitely. So he's done a good few 360s there. He'll be absolutely fine, but a little bit miffed with himself. He's now wheel spinning like crazy to get back onto the track again. So look for traction a little bit as we gain grip, back onto the tarmac again, and literally just try and get your heart rate back up again as we look for a replay of what we've just seen there. The third place man goes sideways, corrects it, it snaps back the other way, which is called a tank slapper, as the fuel sloshes around in the petrol tank behind you and literally just wallops you back round again onto the grass. Plenty of runoff on the inside there, so no damage at all, just a little bit of pride damage, that's all. So we've got the Renault 5 there coming into Copse Corner. Back into the leaders again, see into the back markers as well. It's about where you pass the back markers. Now that's giving the two BMWs now. The third place man, as we've just seen, spun off. So it's just down to these two of not making any mistakes and having a nice clean race up the front. And let's see if Stanford can take West for that lead that West has had for all of the race so far.
They're both experienced drivers. The traffic should not be a problem, but of course it's a short lap. Now this is third and fourth coming towards you. The recovered Michael Sheraton just ahead of the Jaguar XJS of Andrew Harrison. Now that car started 22nd, but it's up to fourth. So it's made very, very good progress in conditions which you might think are not really conducive for a Jaguar XJS with a 5-litre engine.
Yeah.
Second spin of the race for Stuart Kye's Jerry Marshall Tribute Capri.
Proving how slippery it is. You know, we have that bit of rain, the sun now comes out, it also gets very, very slippery as well. And I can't believe that Sheraton is still in third place after that 3 or 4 360 spin that we saw at Copse.
And Ray West in the traffic, look, is pulling away. David Howard's Jaguar, I noticed, has got back into the race. I was fearful about where it was in the gravel bed. It's actually, thanks to the marshals, got back out and is still circulating. The cars then now turn their way up out of left field. Sideways Ray West comes up onto the back of Malcolm Jeff's Alpha Sud Sprint that's attacking Alan Greenhall's Vauxhall Forenza. Over the timing line comes Ray West then now. That puts 10 laps in the book, and we've got time enough, I think, for just 2 more laps of the race. Out of Copse Corner they come. In that one shot, you saw the variety that the Classic Touring Car Racing Club could offer as the leaders got in and amongst the traffic. So the BMW M3s working their way through Copse Corner. Round the outside goes Roger Stanford. He gets through the traffic, gets past the Alan Mann liveried Ford Escort, and now once more down Wellington Straight.
And the car that he's just passed in the Escort with the Alan Mann livery, 64 years old, John is, bless him, and he's been racing for about 22 years and he's never had a race win, and he's desperate for a win. He's had class wins, but he's never actually had a race win. So maybe not today, because I don't think he likes the wet conditions, but 64 years old. Brilliant. What a lovely bloke.
He's second in class, though. He's not doing half bad. A quick word about Andrew Anderson-Smith in the Honda CRX, because in fairness, every time anybody bears down on him and he needs lapping, he gets well out of the way, and as he learns about his racecraft, he's doing everything absolutely right. He's not getting in anybody's way, not impeding them. Perfect gentleman when it comes to being a back marker in this race. The last lap board goes out, 22 seconds on the clock as Ray West sprints over the line. Michael Sheraton has done another best lap of the race, incidentally, but the spin cost him so much time. He's a rather distant third now, but third I think he will remain, because in turn he's being able to shake off there the XJS in the hands of Andrew Harrison coming up towards the line. The regulations for the British Saloon Car Championship in period made participation of an XJS not possible. The engine limit was capped so that the XJS with its 5.3 litre engine was not eligible, but it was in Europe. So you had the XJSs taking on the 635 CSI BMWs, and then latterly the Rover Vitesses as well for 83-84, for example. There is Nick Strong. Now he's 5th in his Capri, and he comes through being pursued by the barking Escort. You can hear it in the background of Pete Winston.
Sounded great, didn't it?
Absolutely. Ray West, meantime, has been able to fend off everything that Roger Stanford has thrown at him and worked his way commendably well through the traffic.
Yes, yeah, he has done a very, very good job through the traffic there. So as you can see there, the leader still just getting the opposite lock on the outside there as they're leaving Luffield, staying off the painted curbs, wipers ablaze. Even though he's in the lead, he's having to chase back markers, so the spray is being kicked up by them. And as you can see, checkered flag. Over to you, David.
Ray West wins then, his second win of the weekend, and he does the fastest lap of the race on the very last lap for good measure. Roger Stanford will come home in second place. He's been over the timing line, but he's not yet been reflected as having crossed the line, but he is there. And then it's going to be Michael Sheraton, hopefully, for third. But with the leaders working their way through traffic, there was a lot going on at the end. And here is for fourth place, not bad, from 22nd on the grid. Coming up towards the line now, Andrew Harrison, as he works his way up towards the line. Through he goes. A very good effort indeed in the XJS. So West the winner by 2.2 seconds from Stanford. Sheraton third, Harrison fourth, and Nick Strong is going to come through for fifth, and a class-winning Pete Winston should be on target with the best of the Mark 1 escorts for sixth position. There is Nick Strong. He will take second in his class behind Andrew Harrison's XJS. The Mark 1 Capri comes across the line behind the Jaguar of David Howard that we saw in the gravel bed early on in the race. Frustrating that, because David is normally a front runner, but today that spin didn't help him at all. And Stephen Primmett arrives in his usual manner, sideways and spectacular, seventh indeed over the line, seventh after his spin up at Beckett's at the start of the race. There is Ronnie Haynes, Mark 1 escort, heading up towards the line on the tail of Malcolm Wise. 9th and 10th they go through. Malcolm Wise 9th, Ronnie Haynes 10th, and 10th is the last unlapped driver across the line. There is Ray West, victorious, another man making it 2 out of 2 at Silverstone this weekend. And the yellow BMW M3 will make its way down the pit lane, and a very good job done in, as we keep saying, very tricky conditions here at Silverstone. Ray West the winner in the end, 2.298 seconds the margin over Roger Stanford. Michael Sheraton third despite the spin that he had. Andrew Harrison takes fourth from way back on the grid, a good drive. Nick Strong fifth with his Capri, and Pete Winston, still quick, still successful at 66 years of age, comes home in sixth spot. Silverstone playing host to our first Motors TV Live race day of 2015. Castle Combe and Donington on the calendar as well for live action this year. The next one being at Castle Combe, Bank Holiday Monday the 4th of May, and another very good race day in prospect. But we've had some cracking racing here, and for Ray West, his 2015 season has opened in the best style with 2 victories here this weekend. After a few years away, he's come back into racing of late, and as successfully as ever. Clambers out of the car. Garland is there for him. Magnus Laird in the background, who puts on these Motors TV Live race days, shakes hand, and Andy J is there as well to have a word with our race winner.
Ray, congratulations. That's 2 wins for you this weekend. That's a great success.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm really pleased. Yeah, we sort of started with the car last year. Had a few things going wrong last year. Didn't really do many races. Only did 4 races with the car. And now over the winter we've changed a few bits and pieces, and hopefully it's going to be quite strong this year.
I mean, you've put a bit of a marker in the sand there, because it was quite a scrap, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. The thing of it is when you catch up the back markers, you just got to watch what they're doing and then watch what's behind you as well, because it's very tussly. It makes it for exciting racing.
Did you find that you were spending almost more time looking in the mirrors than straight ahead?
Yeah, I was. You know, Roger's a really good driver. You know, he's a wily old fox, and you just got to keep, you know, I kept seeing him in the mirror, getting closer and closer, and I could just nudge away. But he's a wily old fox, good driver, nice and clean. He could have, like, come up the inside and tapped us, but we don't do that. You know, we're not touring car drivers, we're sensible drivers.
Right. Well, you had a bit of time out from racing. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Are you thinking this is it for you now? You're going to stick in it and keep at it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had 10 years out, you know, and you know, now back is just fun. It's just fun, and also it's to put West Tuning around again, because we've been a long-standing company. You know, we've been down at Thruxton since 1986, 87. So we've been around the block a bit. You know, it's nice that, you know, yesterday we did a load of work for Callum Lockie on their Ferrari last year, so they had a good result last year, so that's good for us.
Brilliant. Well, tell me a little bit about what it's like racing here at Silverstone. It's a pretty special place, even in the wind.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is an iconic place, isn't it? Everybody comes here because of the Grand Prix, so everybody knows Silverstone. But, you know, it's very challenging on days like today, very challenging.
What made it so difficult today?
Just grease. It's just so slippery out there. It's you unless you drive it, you won't appreciate it.
I mean, we've heard that from everyone. What's the big surprise about it? Because it has been the great leveller today. Is it that you just can't see it, or is it that you only realise you're in it when you're slipping in it?
Yeah. It when you're slipping, you sort of push, and you think you've got grip, and then all of a sudden you've got no grip, and it is no grip. It goes from like a marginal amount of grip to no grip. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, I think it's fair to say we've been chatting away to you, and we haven't given you a trophy and some champagne yet, so I think we should get you some champagne, and once you've enjoyed that, I'll throw back to David Addison with some highlights.
Thanks a lot.
Andy, thanks. Let's have a look back then at what was another very lively saloon car race here from Silverstone, as Ray West from his pole position blasted away into the lead. It almost came unstuck at Beckett's. He got sideways behind. Stuart Kai's Capri got sideways. Malcolm Wise spun the Sierra. Everybody survived, but it was a salutary lesson as to just how treacherous the conditions were going to be. Up front, the race developed into a BMW battle as the snaking M3 of Ray West had to contend with Roger Stanford's 2.5 litre M3, and then the 325i of Michael Sheraton that joined in the battle as well. He was carving his way up the order, but eventually a spin cost him a lot of time. A spin cost David Howard any chance of a good result. He skated off and got beached into the gravel bed. He was able to rejoin, but a long way back. He wasn't the only person in trouble, because Stephen Primmett had his moment as well. He ran wide and lost the escort. Having clipped a cone, he then spun and fell down the order. He got back into the race and bagged 7th at the end. Michael Sheraton had this lose coming out of Copse and amazingly continued in 3rd place. Sheraton hooked a gear and carried on in the race. 3rd was his, despite having lost so much time slithering backwards across the grass. Ray West on target for a 2nd victory of the weekend, though. So here at Silverstone, the Motors TV Live Race Day season has been underway with some excellent racing. The next grid is starting to form up, but although we are going to be leaving Silverstone, you'll be able to watch the remaining races later on today. 9 o'clock will be when you can have a look at the remaining races, which, to whet your appetite, will be for the Clubman's cars, more classic touring car action, Formula Ford, and indeed the Brit Car Trophy as well. So here on Motors, we're going to go away from Silverstone for a while, but you can see all the action from the rest of the afternoon from 9 o'clock this evening. And believe me, there's going to be some great racing in prospect. So rejoin Andy J, Charlie Bella Henderson and me, David Addison, later on for more action from Silverstone. We've had, so far, some remarkable racing in conditions that have tried everybody to their extremes. And as I say, there is plenty more to come from touring cars, sports cars, and indeed the Brit Car GT Trophy, with pit stops and driver changes in some instances as well. So you can enjoy the best of that action later on. 9 o'clock here on Motors TV. But the British club racing season has begun at Silverstone this weekend. We've had full grids, we've had some very good racing. It looks like National Motorsport is in for another great season.